Have you ever commented on how someone might decide on a nib size? I've always bought a medium, but I'm considering a Delta Fusion 82, which is kind of an expensive pen. And I feel like I'm being daring and getting a broad nib. I was just wondering your thoughts on pros and cons for different nib sizes. Okay, so I guess if you are relatively new to the fountain pen world, the first thing I recommend is to stick to the smaller nib sizes. The reason is, if you're coming from ballpoints or roller balls or whatever, and you have a fine nib or a medium nib, they're going to be pretty darn fine, keeping in mind that fountain pen ink itself is water-based. It's more fluid. It's going to absorb more into the paper than your paste ink in your ballpoint pen or your gel ink in your rollerball pen. So it's always better to stick to the finer nibs when you're just first getting into fountain pens. That way you aren't just, dealing with feathering and bleeding issues like crazy because you have a pen that's too wet for the type of paper that you're used to. Once you get accustomed to the paper and maybe you upgrade some of your paper, find out some things you like, get some cool inks, then if you want to get a little more daring, it's always better to try that with less expensive pens at first. Or, like you're looking at a Fusion 82, if you get it and it's just not for you, gouletpens.com, we got a pretty flexible return policy. We recognize that sometimes you just don't know how a pen's going to write until you write with it. So make sure wherever you're buying this pen is a place that they're okay returning it if you use it and find out it's just not right for you and you want to exchange it for another nib size. That pen specifically is relatively easy to do. You can actually pull the nibs out of that pen even. They don't sell the nibs separately on the Fusion 82, but you can do that. Anyway, so I find it's best to get something like a Lamy, Safari, or Vista All-Star, whatever, a Lamy pen, because you can interchange the nibs. And Lamy's got a pretty solid, rounded out, nib offering. They got extra fine through broad, a 1.1, 1.5, and 1.9 millimeter italic. So you can try out different nibs on a single pen and get an idea of what an extra fine is like and what a broad is like and how you might like them both and how the ink behaves differently and how it behaves on different paper with your writing style. Even different people, the nibs can write differently. Like for example, Rachel, my wife, when she writes with a pen, it's much lighter and much thinner than when I write with it because I'm a heavy-handed writer. She writes with it more upright, much lighter, more delicate, and the ink doesn't flow as much when she writes as when I write. So even with the same ink, pen, and paper, it looks different for her than it does for me. So you really have to kind of test it out. And that's why I usually recommend getting a pen with interchangeable nibs that you can do that. Or if you have like a Noodler's Ahab or something and you want to get Goulet nibs or some other number 6 size nib and you can swap it out. TWSBI's got interchangeable nibs. That's a little more expensive, but option to go if you're just testing it. But anyway, interchanging nibs is a great way to test it out. If you want to get a Fusion 82, I might go a little bit safer on that one. The broad is really wet on that pen. So be careful going with something that is a new brand you've never used, with a nib size you've never tried, because then you're really just kind of leaving it up to chance. Unless you maybe read some reviews or have somebody that you trust that's able to give you a clear picture of what it's like. On gouletpens.com, I've set up the Nib Nook, which is writing samples that I've done with Noodler's Black on Rhodium number 16 dot pad paper with every nib size of every pen that we have here. And ironically, I actually have yet to do the Fusion 82 on there. I will get that on there though soon, I promise. But anyway, so that'll be on there and you can compare nib sizes across pens that you already have. That can help you to get an idea across brands, across nib sizes of what might be helpful for you.